Hey everyone, it's Justine, and today I'm going to show you how to create this card here that's perfect for a children's birthday card or the way I used it for our friends. So I'm going to be taking a big shot here, and I'm going to do all my die cutting at the very beginning of the video and very beginning of card making because I don't like taking out my big shot more than once. I'm going to be using the stitched corner tag die from My Favorite Things, and I'm going to be cutting it out of a piece of 80-pound Neenah Solar White cardstock and Simon Says Stamps Sea Glass cardstock. I'm trying to be using up a lot of my scraps or extra sheets of paper for this card, and this card is totally perfect for using up all of those little pieces that you have, because I'm going to be cutting out 3 small animals from the picture book die set from Simon Says Stamps. So I'm going to be cutting out a giraffe, monkey, and koala. So you have to determine which colors you're going to be using because the colors you're using are going to determine which colors you need to cut out. So for example, I only needed this dark chocolate cardstock for the monkey and the giraffe because the koala doesn't have any brown on it. I'm going to be using as well Kraft cardstock for a lighter shade of brown on the animals, cotton candy for their ears or the inner ears, and then I'm going to be using some fog cardstock for the gray of the koala. So now that I have all of my details cut out here, I'm just going to finish off the giraffe in lemon cardstock. I'm going to be taking this stitch die that I cut out at the beginning of the video. I'm going to be creating an inlaid technique, which means that everything is going to be on one layer. So I'm going to need to cut out my animals, the outline of them at the very least, so I can fit all the small pieces in there after. So I grabbed the monkey as well as the koala and I lined them up perfectly here onto my sea glass cardstock because I want them to sit in the sky. So it's going to have sky around them immediately instead of having that extra layer. And I'm going to put that through my die cutting machine. Lastly, I have to add the giraffe, of course, and depending on if you want the giraffe in the foreground or the background is how you're going to add the pieces. So I'm just going to take all of these pieces out of here and put them aside. I don't really need them unless I want to create some really funny colors later of animals. And then I'm going to stick the giraffe here right in the middle and die cut him as well. So now comes the fun part, and I will speed up the video as well once I get going on the card so you know what I'm doing in slow pace and then you know how to do it. So I am going to attach this sea glass cardstock onto my white cardstock so I have something to glue on top of. You can also glue the sea glass directly onto your card base if you want, but then you'll have to do some creative trimming after. So I'm going to go ahead and start adding the pieces for the giraffe. So I add glue onto the back of each of the areas, or if they're really small areas like the eyes, I will actually add the glue directly onto the white cardstock and then add the pieces because they're quite small. I find tweezers help with this as well with the placement and then not getting your fingers all full of glue. So you just have to mix and match all the pieces in the different colors and then you add them. So if you wanted the giraffe to be standing behind the koala and the monkey, you actually needed to do him last. I didn't really think about it when I was doing that, and that was my original intention, but once I realized I put this in the foreground, then that was it. So if you want him behind, you have to start off with the koala as well as the monkey. So when you get into pieces that are going to be a little bit more complex, like the pieces where his ears cut off or part of the koala's body, what I did was simply attach it, wait for the glue to dry, and then I went ahead and I just trimmed it with a knife, a craft knife there. I used and I'll link to that below in the video description. The one thing that is important though when you're getting the pieces that overlap is that you're not gluing them onto the giraffe. So it's better to actually glue directly on the white cardstock than it is to glue the individual pieces. Because later when we trim them with the craft knife, it's just going to fall right off the cardstock and it's going to be super easy. So I'm going to show you now what I mean, so don't mind my head being in the way there. I'm grabbing my craft knife here, and this is called a pen blade. It's really awesome. I loved it. I got one at Creativation last year, and they're really fantastic for craft cutting, or cutting for crafts. And so I'm just going along the line of the giraffe and then lifting up the ear and pulling it aside. And you can see now that the monkey's actually standing behind the giraffe when I do this. So as I mentioned before, if you want the giraffe to be standing behind the monkey and the koala, you would have had to have placed the monkey and koala first and then the giraffe, and you would have to be cutting around the monkey's ears and the koala's ears and cutting out pieces of the giraffe. So now that I'm finished, all I did was trim anything that was kind of hanging off of the tag here, and I added some glue onto the background, and then I attached it to my cardstock to make my final bit of the card. Now all I have to do is add my sentiment and we're good to go. So as I said, this card could actually be used for a baby card if you wanted to change up the animals a little bit. You could use it as the friendship card that I'm going to make, or it's perfect for a kid's birthday card. A kid would love this. So I'm going to be using from the Best Friends stamp set from Simon Says Stamp, I love my squad. I love this saying, and I definitely have a crafty squad and definitely have people to send this out to, so I'm going to be doing that. And I'm just going to peel that off here and stamp that using my MISTI stamping tool, as well as some VersaFine ink, which is my favorite ink for stamping sentiments. So I'm just getting some of the glue here off of the animals that I had from my sticky fingers, and that's the end of today's card. I hope you enjoyed today's card tutorial and you're going to give inlaid die cutting a try. You can do something less complex at first and then work your way up. I have lots of videos on it. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and have a wonderful week.